Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the Think, Pair, Share reading strategy. And I think that this is a really great reading strategy to use for younger kids, but as well as older students, maybe in high school or even college, somewhere around that type of age. I think that this is a really good reading strategy to use for any student, regardless your age. Now, I think in kindergarten especially, this is really good for them to just get communication skills, talking to one another back and forth. If you have an English language learner in the class, it's a great way for them to be able to talk to their students, and that's a great way for them to, learn English as their second language, as they can talk to the other students and have a conversation. And I think that's a really good idea for them, and a different way for them to be able to talk and learn. And they learn a lot of information just from talking amongst themselves. They really do. So the materials needed for this would be yourself, the teacher, your class sitting in front of you. Maybe you have them in front of you on like a mat or something, and they have assigned seats. And then you would need a book, whatever it is that you might be comparing. If you're in high school, you might be reading, a big chapter book together as a class in an English or a reading class. And then you would do the Think, Pair, Share reading strategy with them, and you would say, okay, so let's think in our heads about what we think, what might happen in the next chapter. And you give your students a minute to think about what would happen in the upcoming chapter. And then you'd say, okay, let's share with one another on what you think, would happen in the next chapter. And then you could come together as a class, or you could come together in small groups, however you wanted to do it. So if it was me and I was teaching my students right now, I could have two separate books like these ones right here. And I would say, okay, so we're going to read these books. One of these is about cats and one of them is about dogs. And we're going to read these books together as a whole, as a class. And then I'm going to tell my students, okay, so I want you to take a couple of minutes to think to yourselves about the reading and about how cats and dogs are different and how they're similar. So I would let them, think in their heads, cover their eyes, do whatever they need to do to think for just a couple of minutes, ways that we just read about cats and dogs being different. And then I would say, okay, turn to your partner, and they would all turn to their partners that they have on the floor with them, and they would talk to one another and talk about different ways that the cats and the dogs from the reading are different. And then maybe after all of that, we would come together as a class, and I would have a piece of paper, a whiteboard, whatever it is, and have one column for cats, one column for dogs, and maybe the center column has similarities between the two. Or we could do like a Venn diagram type thing, anything like that. And I would ask them, okay, so what did your partner say? What kind of ideas did your partner come up with that maybe you didn't think about? What did you two think about were the same? And then I could write them down, and we could have a cat and dog chart explaining the ways that they're similar and how they're different. We could write in the similarities, they both have 4 legs and a tail, 2 ears, that type of thing. But then we could put differently on the different columns, different things that they eat and things like that. So I think that that would be another really good way to use the Think, Pair, Share reading strategy. That's how I would use it in my classroom for younger elementary age students, but there are plenty of other ways that you could use this reading strategy in particular with elementary students, high school students. I don't think that matters. I think it's a really good reading strategy to use.